Friends of Israel's Jew and Gentile podcast. I am your host, Chris Katolka, and with me is none other than the Jewish sage himself, the one, the only, Mr. Steve Herzig. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm trying to see who's going to win.
Win what?
The Racing Rabbis.
What is this?
The Racing Rabbis. Alice, my wife, said, I got something for your podcast. And she said, how would you like to see the synagogue speedsters? I said, what are you talking about?
Where did she find this?
I have no idea. But I do know, Chris, as we open up, I don't know, which one do you want, the black kippah or the blue kippah?
I'll do the rabbi with the black kippah.
Okay.
Welcome in, everybody. I just want to say thanks for being a part of the Friends of Israel's Jew and Gentile podcast. Steve's about to race. Wait a minute, Steve. I got to get the camera on you here. I got to get the right camera. No, not that one. Not that one. Yep, that's it right there.
Right.
We got our two rabbis.
On your mark, get set, go.
There they go.
Look at them go.
They're going. Which one did I choose again?
You chose the black.
Oh, I'm losing big time. I'm right behind you now. I am literally behind you. Wait a minute. I'm turning the corner. Where's the finish line?
I died.
You
I think you won. You are ahead by a kippah.
That is fantastic.
By a kippah.
That is fantastic. Where did she get these? The racing rabbis. There's even a good Jewish joke on the back of the box too.
Yeah, well, you could tell it if you want.
No, you'll have to buy the box to find out what it is.
You'll have to buy the box. All I know is Alice thinks about it all the time. I think it's fantastic, and that's how I'm feeling, Chris. But as funny as
do you feel
that
like you're like a racing rabbi? Is that what you feel like in life, like a racing rabbi?
A racing rabbi, but you know, Chris, as I prepare, I'm called the producer.
You're the
right?
producer of the show.
I never knew that till you told me. But so I'm going through some stuff, and I come across this 10-year-old Israeli young person. And Chris, I thought he was an AI person at first.
He does look like AI.
I mean, you can't make it up. He's interviewed by a person from the Jerusalem Post. And by the way, I didn't mean that in a demeaning way. This guy is unbelievable.
Yep.
He is the spokesperson for kids.
Yes.
He's an Israeli. He's only 10 years old, which means 20% of his life has been a war, to say nothing of the missiles that have been thrown. He's been raised under that kind of environment. He represents a whole generation of Israelis who this is normal.
But he actually has an official title in Israel. Do you know the official title?
I do not.
It's right there on the thing that you sent me.
Oh, the spokeskid of Israel.
He's the spokeskid of Israel, and he is being interviewed here by the Jerusalem Post. And what Steve and I find most amazing is that when you listen to him, he sounds like a 50-year-old.
He's amazing. I would listen to this guy. We don't have enough time to play the whole video, but we'll include the address in the show notes.
Yep. Where are the show notes? Where are they?
You have to scroll down.
Scroll down.
Scroll down.
That's right.
I had to find that out. You scroll down. You can view the link that will be there, but we just want to play a portion of it because, Chris, I love this guy.
This guy's
Look at
great.
the way he's dressed, too. He's got the necklace going. This guy's 10 years old.
That's
Most 10-year-olds they just want to play somewhere.
That's right. Now, this kid is the spokeskid of Israel. His name's Ben Carasso, and here he goes. Oh.
So we got to do this.
I'm going to start
I'm
over.
a third generation of a Holocaust survivor. And you saw there's still anti-Semitism against us, even from the Holocaust until now.
Notice his rhythmic
we got to
talking.
do
He's
this.
already learned it.
We have to continue to make a better world.
Ben Carasso, thank you so much for coming to the Jerusalem Post. I'm really excited
you.
to sit down and have this conversation with you.
Thank you, me too.
For our listeners who maybe don't know who you are, could you tell me a little bit about your background and what inspired you to sort of become an advocate?
Sure. So I'm Ben Carasso. I'm 10 years old.
I just want to say that's actually in public speaking, that's very good that you even if you're introduced, he reintroduces himself. That means he knows. I mean, 10 years old. He didn't jump right in.
He's got the it factor.
He's got it.
And since October 7th, I became the spokeskid of Israel. I started it because from October 7th, everyone got hurt, especially children. And we didn't have a voice. We didn't have someone who will share what the children of Israel feel. Like waking up because of alarms, sirens, at 3, 4 a.m. and then going to learn like it's normal. So there's things that only children feel that they don't hear our voice. So that's why I started it.
What made you
Amazing.
Why not?
There you go. So he's Israel's advocate for being the spokeskid of Israel. You can actually listen to the full thing. It's what is it, Steve? About 10 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that.
I think it's
so you can listen online. But Steve, you texted me. You said you got to listen to this kid. He's fantastic.
He is fantastic. I think it's important. He brings. We don't think about, we look at the news. We're going to all the different sites that talk about the dynamic of the war and the hostages and all that. And yes, we focused on kids, young ones who were held hostage. But what are the children in Israel? Israeli children, what are they feeling? If this took place in America, Chris, we have people who their safe space is violated when somebody says something on a college campus or has something they don't agree with. They feel endangered.
Yes.
Well, talk to Ben here. Yeah. Talk to Ben here and see what danger is. And he's the spokeskid for Israel.
Well, and you remember, you and I led a group of pastors to Israel back in January, and remember we visited the food bank site that was down there near Gaza, and there was a Israeli individual who ran the food bank, but he was also an elementary school teacher. And do you remember he was talking about the kids coming up to him, even almost 2 years after October 7th, and they would say to him, to the teacher, "Are we safe?" And he says, "You can only lie so many times. I don't know if we're safe. I don't know what will happen again." And I mean, he started tearing up.
Oh, he did. Because he needed a moment.
He did. And that was actually the moment that our pastors rallied around him, hugged him, prayed with him. But ultimately, even the teachers are seeing the reality that the kids live with on a daily basis. And so it's good to hear from Ben Carasso. You can listen to him from our show notes. The link will be there for you to click on.
And Chris, I wanted to start off with some positive things. I don't know if you have it up there, but you can find it from Timothy Rabinek.
Yep.
The other good news is in the midst of war and all the things happening, Israel is exporting oil.
Yes.
And Chris, when I started in the ministry, even before I did, there was a prime minister, the only woman, an Israeli prime minister, Golda Meir, who talked about the joke. She made the joke popular. It had been around a while. Moses made a wrong turn. And the reason God told him to come to the promised land, there's no oil, and Moses made a wrong turn. It would get a laugh. It was going on for years and years. But that's not the case anymore. That joke isn't true. And Timothy Rabinek, in his teaching videos, has a wonderful visual of the gas findings right off the coast of Israel that not only will supply oil for the next 30 years for Israel, but for the next 30 years for Europe.
For Europe, yeah.
As well. And I thought, there's a lot of bad news coming out. Now we got a spokeskid for Israel, a 10-year-old who's got a great future. And we have good news for the energy business for Israel.
And when we say Timothy Rabinek, Timothy serves with the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry in Poland, and he has a wildly successful YouTube channel with millions of views, hundreds of thousands of followers. It's called Israel My Channel, and he does these fantastic videos like this. So we'll play a moment of this where he talks about the natural gas findings off the coast of in the Mediterranean.
Boy, he has great visuals, doesn't he?
He does.
Hamas. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently.
He's if you're just watching and tuning in, or you're listening on the podcast, Timothy is showing images of Gaza and the destruction in Gaza, and really the fact that Hamas is in control of Gaza. So he highlights all of this. We'll get to the part here where he
still a
begins to
demolition site, and Hamas is still in power.
I think you gotta go
normally, I
forward.
would be very skeptical about this plan, but it seems it's a plan that involves
There we
something
go.
greater than just Gaza.
Oh no,
You
this
see,
is
we have no idea what was actually in those documents signed by Trump and the other leaders. But even before this plan was announced, there were certain leaks in the internet of documents
Timothy. He's
showing
like a Mossad
how
agent.
this rebuilding of Gaza could look like.
No, he should be our
And the immediate
producer.
arrival of equipment sent by Qatar shows a real intent to rebuild Gaza. And despite Gaza being a very small territory and looking insignificant, is actually at the crossroads of trade routes. And going back even to the ancient times, to the times of ancient Egypt, controlling Gaza was critical for controlling trade routes.
this is
Whoever
actually
controlled Gaza
very true.
controlled trade.
Super important
Today,
too.
there is one more advantage to controlling Gaza, which is often omitted. You see, for a long time there was a joke in Israel. God gave the Jewish people the promised land, but he gave them the promised land in the only space in the Middle East where there is no oil. Well, that is no longer a valid joke. You see those blue shapes on the sea? Those are natural gas fields found recently by Israel. And the biggest of this field is called Leviathan. Now,
So what does
where
he
did we
pick, a
hear about
dinosaur?
Leviathan? Oh yeah, the Bible. In Isaiah chapter 27, we read, for example, that the Leviathan represents the evil forces that will be judged by God. Here, it represents this monster of a gas field that was found in the sea by Israel. It can change the nation's economy. Now, just the Tamar gas field is big enough to supply Israel for 20 to 30 years. But what must be understood is that those gas fields are really far away from the coastline. So what do? You build a production platform much closer to the coastline where waters are much more shallow, and then build pipes that connect the gas field with the production field.
It's
And this
genius,
is
yes.
exactly what has happened. Elements of this platform were created in the United States and transported to the Near East, where it was reassembled together in its desired position. Now, where is this location? Well, if you look at the map, it is located right next to where Gaza is. However, having such a valuable structure just next to a territory which is very dangerous is a little bit risky. In fact, in 2023, when the war in Gaza started and many rockets started being fired by Hamas, the production of the platform was halted. The Tamar platform was commissioned in 2013, and despite waiting 30
this was I know I think even before we started the podcast they found these natural gas fields a while ago.
I wrote about shale. Israel has a lot of resource.
But it's funny because it's taken so long because of the Israeli government. They've bogged down the system. It's classic politics, but who gets the money? How do they get the money? How do the people get the money? And it ended up becoming something we're still talking about today. But these aren't necessarily newer finds, but they are. I think what Timothy's trying to say is, with this Gaza deal, that don't be ignorant of the fact that right off the coast is billions and billions of dollars in energy that will not only supply Israel but Europe, and Europe is desperate for energy because Russia is the one currently supplying them, and we got to cut Russia off, or else the West is just going to keep funding a war against itself. And so Israel plays a role in helping. But what's funny is that the West is attacking Israel right now. So
And becoming more and more anti-Semitic as we speak even. But nonetheless, all of this ties together, Chris, as we think the politics of it now versus prophetic implications, staging for it all. Israel is increasingly becoming more of an economic center. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing thing. I saw the former ambassador, I can't think of his name, but he was on Hugh Hewitt. You would think of his name.
yep, I know. You keep talking, it'll come to my mind.
So he was talking about the two superpowers. And now China's a superpower. But the free superpowers, there's two of them, United States and Israel. Mm-hmm. Those are two superpowers militarily. Europe has military power, but they're not considered superpowers. You need NATO in order to have any kind of oomph, if you will. And you got Russia and China. And so these things are all lining up as it relates to energy and money and the Abraham Accords. How does this all play together? Oil could be, and probably is, at the center of all this. We don't know what they're talking about when Donald Trump went there, and all of a sudden, all these Arab countries, oil rich, are all of a sudden very interested.
They're very interested. And they are, we have to be honest too, they are very, there are certain Arab countries that are more hesitant to how this peace proposal is going to play out. I know Saudi Arabia has been very critical of the fact that Qatar, as Timothy is picking up here, is the one that's supposed to be backing the deal to make this happen. They're a part of the peace proposal. And Turkey, who were all against Israel. How can we bring stability when the people who actually funded this enterprise, Hamas, are the ones that are telling them to get out now? That usually doesn't happen that way. And even recently, did you see the King of Jordan, King Abdullah?
Oh,
he said,
don't count on us of interfering.
He goes, nobody wants to.
We'll keep the peace, but we're not going to be peacekeepers.
That's right. They're policy keepers. They're not actually enforcing the peace.
That's right.
And he's saying nobody wants to put boots on the ground in Gaza to enforce peace. So then what's the point of the peace? The irony, I actually did a news spot on this, Steve, is that the irony is that the only country willing to put boots on the ground to enforce peace for the Palestinian people is the Israelis. But then all those Arab nations go, we don't want those Israelis in there, even though they're the ones that are doing the best they can to mitigate the difference between Hamas and the average Palestinian who's just trying to make a way in life. So,
but if the plan continues, and not even succeeds, but if the plan continues, we could have, it could be very interesting, because behind the yellow line in Gaza, where Israel is stationed, they're already starting to rebuild.
Yeah.
That's huge news, Chris, because you're going to see a stark difference between what the Israelis are doing in Gaza and what the Hamas is doing in Gaza.
Yeah, they've already kind of cordoned off an area. I think I read 52 or some odd percent, 51% of Gaza is still under Israeli control.
Exactly.
And they've marked out with a yellow line, basically, like,
It is a yellow line.
This is Israeli controlled. That's Hamas controlled.
And they're going to zygazont with Hamas. And they're going to build that area, and the people are going to see for themselves. How do you want to live?
Yep.
Like them or like this?
There's a J-Post opinion piece that came out that said it's going to show the stark difference between what it means to have Israeli control over helping Palestinians rebuild and Hamas control, which is just destruction. And it's going to take place in this tiny little section of the Middle East called Gaza, that everybody's eyes are on right now. And of course, you know what's going to happen, Steve, is that there's going to be a rise of people that go, of course, the Israelis are occupying this space. It's all going to pop. People are... I was talking to a colleague just about an hour ago, and they said, what are the greatest challenges that you're having in our department in North America Ministries? And I said, you know what the biggest challenge is that within the church itself, there are voices that are influencing young Christians to think that Israel is the problem with the world. Did you see the interview recently with Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
Okay, so during this interview, Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes are basically saying that Christian Zionism, the belief...
They hate it.
They call it a brain virus.
Yep.
But then they say they're offended as Christians about it, and they consider it Christian heresy. I don't think they're reading their Bible. This is the greatest threat that we have, is that these people, they're looking around at all the problems in the world, and what is the greatest problem? Israel and Christian Zionism? It's the tiniest country in the world. How is that possible? And clearly, they're not reading their scriptures, because the scriptures have a heart and passion for Israel and the Jewish people. This is why people should take bridges, so that they can defend themselves against this kind of unnecessary rhetoric and tropes. They're anti-Semitic tropes. I mean, the guy had an anti-Semite on his program. Tucker had an anti-Semite on his program, an avowed He's done the Hitler salute on his podcast. All that to say, this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with, and I believe as Christians, we need to be equipped to be able to defend the fact that we believe that God has a heart and a passion and a calling and a future for Israel and the Jewish people. And they can do that through our program, Steve, FOI Equip.
FOI Equip. Chris, We've been running FOI Equip now for about 3 years, right?
It's about 3.5 years. Yeah.
Well, and the reason we're able to even have this podcast is because of the generosity of believers. And our particular podcast, the equipment for it was actually started by a woman who we just saw her, 2 months ago. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for this equipment, and this equipment was paid for. She was more than willing to be the first giver. Well, we've had another giver who's come around, Chris, and we have, as a result of that, we're having a program. I don't know how we want to label it.
We haven't labeled it yet,
Oh, okay.
but we're going to kickstart it.
Okay, we're going to kickstart. Why don't you give us a little background about this?
Well, we've had a generous benefactor who donated $2,000 to the goal of $10,000 by the end of the year.
Boy, 7 listeners, $10,000.
I know.
That person must have a lot of faith. 7 listeners. That comes out to more than $1,000.
It's going to be, I believe God can do it. But this is the kind of, you're not just giving to this podcast. The bigger picture is that the FOI Equip is all about equipping believers to love Jewish people biblically, to push back against the Tucker Carlsons and the Nick Fuenteses who are just talking old anti-Semitic tropes that were coming out of Russia and coming out of even America with the, what was that pamphlet called? The Elders of Zion, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This is the same nonsense that gave way to the Holocaust. And so we are working as hard as we possibly can in our FOI Equip group that is not just here with the podcast, but also training believers all around the world through our Bridges program, bringing them on our encounter trip where they can be introduced to the Jewish community of the Northeast here, the largest Jewish community in America, really. Taking them to Israel to volunteer, and even more classes that we can do. We've got great classes coming up online. All of this requires funds to educate, to inform, and most importantly, to equip believers to love the Jewish people. So if you can get behind that, the $10,000 isn't just going to this podcast. This podcast is a small part of a bigger
this
picture.
podcast is free.
Bupkis. It's Bupkis. But it's sponsored
We got
by
the equipment, but the other programs we have within Equip takes dollars.
That's right. And so when you give, you're going to not only be supporting the podcast here, but you're also going to be supporting getting people involved in our programs and even supporting our interns. Hey, Steve, our interns are doing such amazing work all around the United States and Canada as they influence the Jewish community. They are young adults who are getting trained to fulfill a calling that God's given to them to love the Jewish people, but they're coming here to FOI Equip, and that requires funds to make that possible. So if you would be willing to donate, you can go to foiequip.org, and you'll see a little button up there, a donate button. You can click on that donate button, and that will go to support the work of FOI Equip, equipping believers to love the Jewish people.
What do you think? Do you think we could do it?
I think we can. We got $2,000 and a challenge, and so the challenge is out to our listeners right now.
All right, we'll have to. Well, I don't know. Maybe we could take bets on the rabbis, the racing rabbis. Place a bet and we'll get money.
That's right. I lost. I do what I normally do. I got right behind you. You know what I did? I said, lead the way there, producer. Hey, listen, in line with the idea of what we do, Steve, is sharing the hope of the Messiah, Jesus. It's in our name here at the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry. And an article that popped up for me that kind of made me excited to see is that Jewish actor Paul Rudd said he would meet Jesus if he had a chance.
That's who he wanted to have lunch with or dinner with or interview.
That's right. It was during an interview actually for the Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters movie that's coming out.
Yeah.
And
Well, they won't come up with it. Everything is redone.
Oh.
Come on. Nobody thinks of anything new. It's old stuff repurposed. Do you know how many movies there are now on what's the dinosaur?
Jurassic
Park. There's like 14 movies.
Star Wars.
Come on already. Come with something. I'm sorry, but
No, I'm with you.
Ghostbusters, when was that? 40 years ago?
My kids were really into this song that had a beat in the background that was a song that I listened to when I was 20. It wasn't even something that goes back to the 50s or 60s. It was just a couple of years ago that this song was published, and now they're already redoing it. And I go, can they come up with something new? But here Paul Rudd More importantly, Rudd declared, somebody asked him a question, if you could meet with anybody, who would it be? Rudd declared, anyone from history? Who would we choose? I know my answer, Jesus Christ. His co-stars, McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard, broke out in laughter. Isn't that funny that you want to meet Jesus and people laugh at that? And Rudd said, by the way, laugh all you want. It seems like it would be a wrong thing to say. Wolfhard then asked, was he real? And Rudd responded, he existed, so wouldn't you want to spend time with him and go, Jesus, what's the deal? And Grace replied, that's a fantastic answer. I read that, Steve, Jesus, what's the deal? And I was not offended by that. I think that's a great question. I think everybody in their lifetime at some point should say, Jesus, what's the deal? Because that means they're engaging with the gospel.
100%, Chris. The whole idea of the person and work of Jesus really goes down to the Bible and the promises that God gives to us. I happen to be writing on the promises of God, which will come out sometime next year for an article in IMG. But Chris, what is the deal? What is the purpose and plan of God? What is life all about? Do you know suicide is increasing all the time because people have no purpose? They see no purpose in life. Mm-hmm. Jesus, what's the deal? Jesus gives purpose to living.
Yeah, that's why when I saw what's the deal, I mean, that question could have so many different answers, from eternal life to an abundant life to peace in life to receiving the Holy Spirit, to being connected, reconciled to God through what Jesus. There's so many things. To live a servant lifestyle, a servant leadership lifestyle. I just think everything what he said is kind of, you almost, as somebody at the Friends of Israel, it's exactly what we're all about. It's having conversations so that people go, yeah, what's the deal, Jesus? I think it's a great question. I think Abraham asked the same question of God when Abraham was told, leave your country, your people, everything behind, and follow me to a land. He gets there a couple chapters later, Genesis 15, God says, I'm your great reward and your shield. And then Abraham goes, God, what's the deal? You brought me out here, but I don't feel like I have everything, that you promised me. And then that's when God made a covenant with him. He took it from a promise to a covenant. Well, here I think the actor Paul Rudd, a Jewish guy, is asking a great question. What's the deal? I think if we can all get somebody to the point where they're saying, Jesus, what is the deal? That means they're seriously engaging with some of the conversations and issues when it comes to the gospel. And I wish we were there for that, because I would have said, great question.
It is a great question. But Chris, the worth of a person. I think if you got a chance to interview Jesus, and by the way, we don't get a chance to ask our own questions, but we do get to be introduced to Jesus, understand what he's thinking, what he's doing, what he wants to do by just reading the Gospels. And the plan of God is that humanity is worth it. Sinful humanity has worth. Mm-hmm. And how do we know that? Jesus died. He gave his life for us. You talk about Abraham, that the covenant that was made, God knew how bad we are and our condition. So when he called Abraham and was going to make a covenant with him, he put him to sleep. He said, this isn't on you, Abraham, or at the time, Abram. This is on me. Take a nap. I'm going to, the promise, you went by faith. The promise that I give is going to be unleashed through your seed.
Go Schluffy.
Go Schluffy. That's right.
The other thing, too, is the question is, if you could ask a question to a historical figure, and he chose Jesus. And the amazing thing is that he could ask that question of Jesus today, because Jesus isn't dead. He's not just a historical figure. The point is that he's alive. You can ask that question. And the words of Jesus are revealed in the scriptures. And that is where we get the answer for these. What's the
Where
deal,
is Jesus right now as alive, Chris?
He's sitting at the right hand of the Father.
He's watching everything going on.
That's exactly right. And he's ready to answer the question. It's not just, hey, I got to take a time machine to go back and sit down with Jesus. You can actually sit down with Jesus today, and you can ask him the question, what's the deal? And he will give you the right answer. Why? Because it's right. All you got to do is open the word. I love those testimonies of people who come to faith in Jesus because they receive a New Testament and they start to read the New Testament and they realize the power of the words of Jesus that force them on their knees in confession and repentance to turn and trust in him. And so again, but all that started with, what's the deal, Jesus? And then they open up, and that's where his words are. So anyway, I appreciated
think that's
that.
Great, Paul Rudd. That's a great question. We're talking about Equip, and Chris, next month, which is only a week away, by the way, next month, on starting November 6th, we have a class on Equip. And the class is titled Navigating the Kingdom of God.
You know, Paul Rudd said, Jesus, what's the deal? Well, Jesus told us in his word, the kingdom is at hand. So what's the deal? Jesus is all about bringing the kingdom. And he does that through his death, burial, resurrection, but also through the fact that he's going to return again and bring the kingdom with him and establish a kingdom. And, you know, this can be confusing because this word kingdom is thrown around a lot, actually.
And people get mixed up because we're not in the kingdom, Chris.
Yeah, we're not in the kingdom. If you think this is the kingdom, bupkis. Exactly. So the kingdom's coming. And Dr. Andy Woods is a phenomenal teacher when it comes to the kingdom. I think his book is like, 3 inches thick, and it all has to do with the kingdom of God and different views of the kingdom of God. Well, here, Dr. Andy Woods is going to help us navigate this word that is often thrown around to give you a better grounding on what it means to when we say the word, the kingdom of God, and what we expect when we think about the kingdom coming. So that's going to be Dr. Andy Woods, November 6th, 13th, and 20th, Thursday nights, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And Steve, can I just remind you, it's free. I don't know if you know that. Have you been paying for these? You don't have to pay, you know.
No, you don't. Not only don't you have to pay, but if you miss it, you could come back to it anytime you want, including all the past courses that we have. We have a whole list now of past courses that range everything from prophecy to the Jewish feasts to all different. What is Judaism? We have interviews with. We have some major interviews with folks. I can't remember all of them, but you can scroll down and check all the courses out.
And when we hit our $10,000 mark by the end of the year, part of it, the funding helps to go to make sure these classes continue on, that they are on demand, that they are ready to go, and people are. We have 2,000 equippers online learning the Bible from a Jewish perspective. So,
and just Chris, to explain. The courses are free, but the way we give them out actually costs us money in order to, the website. I'm not sure how all that works, but it does cost hosting, and all that costs money. Delivering the class itself online costs money. That's why we want to start, and that's why that person started with $2,000 to try to get $1,000 from our 7 listeners.
Exactly. So you can do that by going to foiequip.org. You can register for the class, and then you can make a donation to help us support FOI Equip in the ministry. Steve, we are in Psalm 119. We are coming close.
We're still there.
You're so calm right now. I can't believe how calm you are that we're still moving through Psalm 119. Usually you start to get antsy.
I'm pretty well now that I'm a producer. I'm viewing it from a different vantage point.
Okay, I like that. You're the producer. So we're in a different section here now. We're going through the alphabet.
So tell us where we have been alphabet wise.
Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Num, Samek, and now we're in. I actually think one of the hardest words to say. Letters to say in the Hebrew language, ayin. No, but it's not ayin. They say it down here in Hebrew. It's like below guttural. It's like in here they go ayin like that. Do you not know that?
No.
It's down here. It's like they say it.
I'm an American Jew. When I was in Hebrew school, it was ayin.
Yeah, no, but see, you almost had it there. You said ayin like that.
Ayin.
I know, but it's here. It's not ayin. Ayin. That's
ayin.
Anyway, ayin.
All right, starting in verse 124 and going to verse, I think,
121.
121 to 128.
Here we go.
Why don't you read it?
I have done what is righteous and just. Do not leave me to my oppressors. Ensure your servant's well-being. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes fail looking for your salvation, looking for your righteous promise. Deal with your servant according to your love and teach me your decrees. I am your servant. Give me discernment that I may understand your statutes. It is time for you to act, Lord. Your law is being broken because I love your commands more than gold, more than pure gold, and because I consider all your precepts right. I hate every wrong path. Steve, the line, I know that you've provided a nice layout here. I just want to say in reading through that, the line that kind of stands out to me a bit is, I am your servant, verse 25, kind of right in the middle here. I am your servant. Give me discernment that I might understand your statutes.
Yeah, Chris, as I read this, and yes, we need to understand his statutes, but, a couple things in Judaism now, Tukan Olam. Tukan Olam is repairing the world, helping God, the idea of justice. It's a big deal amongst Jewish people. In fact, you'll hear that Tukan Olam amongst Jews who actually support Mandani in New York.
Yeah.
We had the guy who played in Princess Bride, the actor, the guy,
bald guy?
No, the six finger. The guy was looking for the six-fingered guy.
I don't know.
Okay, and he's Jewish. Manny
Text
Patakin.
us, 424. 1948.
Manny Patakin is his name, and he just wrote an article about why he is supporting Mandani. He's Jewish, and he thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And the idea is he's for justice. Now, I think it's crazy, but that's the word he uses. And the idea of helping God. And so in that first verse, we have justice and righteousness. And then he says, do not leave me to my oppressors. And Chris, I did just a little checking out. I went back to that book that I was freaking out on because I thought we were there way too long, Leviticus, which is real important. You teach that at Word of Life.
I love Leviticus.
Leviticus is something else. So you're familiar with Leviticus 25, verse 14, and if you sell anything to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor's hand, you shall not oppress one another. That's a commandment. Therefore, you shall not oppress one another. Verse 17, but you shall fear God, for I am the Lord your God. The idea here of in ayin is the idea of, look, Lord, I've done justice. Keep my oppressors away. He's the idea of, look, I've done right. Shouldn't you do this? Well, it's an interesting mentality.
It is, because it kind of runs into the face of another book in the Bible, which is Job, where there is suffering. When you're trying to, he was doing the right thing, and yet suffering came, great suffering, not just, somebody who's
We
saying,
always have this stress. The isms always rely on works, on things that we do, and they look all the time negative on the things that seem harsh or difficult in life. But Chris, the only time anybody grows, and by the way, this is not just theological. I'm a sports fan. The athletes will tell you that success is great, but you don't learn much in success. Where you learn is when you fail, and that helps you to get toward success. And God allowing things to happen. Look, the author comes to God in the different, look, I'm doing this. Keep the oppressors from me. He's praying. He's asking God to help him because of this going on.
My son Cohen and Preston are great soccer players, but Cohen has chosen a position that is you either winning in soccer or you are losing in soccer, and that's the goalie position.
Tough position.
It's a tough position because everybody else can
it's boring except for 2 seconds out of 2 seconds here, 2 seconds there. You either make the save or you don't.
And the other part too is that I always tell them, everybody else on the team can go, oh man, I let that ball slip past me. Oh man, but there's maybe somebody else that will help recover it, and everybody gets a mistake on the field. But when you're in goalie, you get your mistake is the goal, and that's not a good thing at all. And so, it's an emotional experience when you are the goalie. And I keep trying to teach him this idea that you're doing everything right. Like he's coaching his team from the goal. He's telling them, guys, get over here, get over here. I need you over here. At the same time, he's, watching and he knows the moves to make. He's been practicing for so long. But I'm going to tell you, when that goal goes in the net, Steve, you can see his spirit drain out of him. I'm trying to encourage him, because I also think it's like what you're talking about. His greatest reward in being a goalie is those moments where he has to learn to get back up and to deal with the issue and to stare at it in the face and not feel the weight and pressure of the whole team on him. The whole team let him down in that moment. The guy broke through and they scored. But you can see how he's felt like, I did it all. I thought I did everything right, and still the ball got through. So I don't know. The same thing you're saying. I keep trying to teach them, hey, look, it's in those moments of failure that are going to only empower you more to make the right decisions next time.
And that's why verse 125 that you alluded to, I am your servant. So we go to verse 121. Look, I've done this. Keep the oppressors away. Obviously, he's being oppressed. But in 125, he says, I am your servant. And that's important, Chris. He didn't give up. He believes that God could help him. He's asking God to help him, but he's his servant anyway.
And the word that he uses there too is discernment. I think that is so, because I think we're in a culture today, Steve, that, I don't know what your text says there. Does this use
understanding?
Understanding, discernment, the wisdom to be able to understand the law and to be able to understand the statutes, to live them out. And I think that we live in a culture today that could care less about discernment, that could care less about understanding or wisdom. It's more, there's a difference in wisdom and knowledge, Steve. Knowledge is just information. But wisdom is how we take that information and make the proper decisions from it. And that's even more valuable than knowledge. And we live in a knowledge-based society now. I mean, I'm telling you, my kids, they know so many things because it's just online and they see it and people talk about it. It's in their scroll. It's in their feed. It's this. Hey, Dad, you hear about this? No, I didn't even know about that. Did you know that an airplane flies like this because of this? I had no idea. Why? Because they just see knowledge. But there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom is the ability to take the knowledge of what God's word says and to be able to apply it to your life in a way where you're making the decisions on a day-to-day basis for what is just and what is right. To know, that's why he's saying, I'm trying to do everything right according to your law. I've done what is mishpat and tzedakah, the righteousness and justice. I'm doing these things. So, Lord, you would expect the oppressors to be pushed away. But even as they're coming after you, you still have to have the ability to know how to make the right decisions when the oppressors, even though you're doing the right things, are still coming after you. You still have to know how to be able to discern and be wise to take the knowledge of God's word and convert it into the wisdom of practicing it.
Well, Chris, long before Seinfeld came on the scene, where that great line that we've used here many times, that's gold.
Gold.
That's gold,
Jerry. Yep.
That's right. We quote that all the time. Well, I don't think they actually got it from here, but as Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right.
What does he say in Psalm 127? Therefore, I love your commandments, his word. I love your word more than gold. Yes, more than fine gold.
Yeah.
That's gold, Chris. The commandments of God are gold. And because of just what you said, talking about wisdom, discernment, understanding, being able to function in the life that God has given to us in this period of time. God is timeless. He's not limited by time. We are. We're stuck in our time period. And Christians had to live during other times, some more difficult, even where we're located. He puts people in one place and then he puts other people in another place. That's his sovereignty. And the psalmist here is talking about commandments. And those commandments could be read by anyone at any time period to help them live in their Jerusalem, as it were.
There's this traditionally black church in our town, and they always put out these great, how sometimes there's churches that they use that sign outside and they put great one-liners out there. And I was driving through town and I saw it, and this week's was really good, and it kind of plays into this idea of, understanding God's law, understanding what's right, and what's good in relationship to, someone oppressing you, how we discern God's law. And it said a crumb is more satisfying when it's done in integrity than a feast when it's done with injustice or if it's done with wickedness or whatever. You're stealing something. So which is better? A crumb is more, I thought this was so good. A crumb is more satisfying, not just to your stomach, but to your whole being, because it's done with integrity. It's done properly. It's done in accordance with justice and righteousness, according to God's word, than an entire feast, a buffet, if it's done in wickedness or what. So again, that really struck me, because I thought it's really, sometimes we get so focused on the feast and not even just the fact that when you do what's right according to the scriptures and you discern God's law, whether or not you get a little bit of something, it satisfies you holistically much better than if you were stealing, robbing, taking, whatever it is that is the opposite of God's law.
And we learn about that through the reading of the Word, which is the central thesis, the central theme of what we're doing in Psalm 119.
So next week, we're going to be in Peh.
Not Feh.
Not Feh. Peh.
That's right. That's
All
right.
right, Steve, let's go to the news. What do you got going on?
Chris, we face right now, we're recording this a week before, a little less than a week. It's Tuesday. Is it 2 weeks? It's 2 weeks when election is, right?
Yep.
Isn't an election in 2 weeks?
Yep. November 4th.
November 4th. So, Chris, there's a big election going on in a number of places, but for 650 rabbis, the election in New York City for the mayor is big stuff.
Big time.
To get 650 rabbis to sign a document, an agreement, it has to be a big deal, and I think it is.
Again, normally we always joke around. This is not a political podcast. We're not a political podcast.
That's a political event, but these are Jewish rabbis who who have congregations who are concerned about what's possibly happening in the city of New York, which can affect every citizen.
The thing what's important about this conversation, though, is because the individual who looks like he's going to sweep the mayoral race here, Assemblyman Zoran Mondami, he was actually just surfaced with a video of him surfaced recently, and a lot of what he does has some very anti-Israel, anti-Semitic bent to it. And there's a 2023 video of him in a clip of a panel of Democratic Socialists of America, DSA. And Mamdani is heard saying, have you heard this yet?
I just heard about it today.
He said, we have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF.
Craziest
the Israel
statement
Defense
ever.
Forces.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's the kind of anti-Israel rhetoric, but also it bleeds into Semitism as well. There are aspects of some anti-Semitic comments that were made as well. And I know he's trying to bridge now that he's running for mayor, he has this grin on him that just when he's speaking, when he's being, in a debate or whatever, he just sits there and smiles. I don't know if you saw it. That's actually, if you're in the realm of politics, that's genius.
That's a good thing.
Just take the hits, because it will roll right off the next day. But here, as many times as his opponents put out these statements that he says about Israel or about the Jewish people or about politics, the economy, all of it, it never seems to affect his polling numbers. So clearly something is going on in New York City where these decisive things that he's saying that will affect the way that the Jewish community feels in New York City don't seem to matter to the average New York citizen anymore.
It doesn't, but it does to these congregations. 650 rabbis representing Jewish people. Now, not all Jewish people go to synagogue, but 10% of the city of New York is Jewish. 10%. Mm-hmm. That's a major portion. And if you don't think that what's happening there, which I admit is political, but it concerns, this isn't just a budget idea. Bringing in the IDF in a discussion for mayor of New York, when you're talking about the police and bringing in Israeli Defense Force, is Meshuggah.
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
It's crazy,
Yep.
but he's making it normal.
That's right.
And that's why these rabbis are concerned, and because they know that should the Lord allow this to happen, where the people have spoken, okay, God will, okay, sei gesund. There's going to be, already, Florida is opening its doors to businesses in New York, and we'll see what happens.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is that since the rise of COVID and a lot of transitioning that's been happening in the country, New York was once the sole central financial district.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not like that. And Miami has taken over a bit. I hate to say this, but because I know Pastor Neil is in Dallas, but Dallas is another big hub. And I'm confident if the taxes go up, because it's all tax the rich, and there's anti-Semitism.
Well, all that free stuff costs money.
They're all going to go running for those states. But the 650 rabbis warned Wednesday that electing Democratic Socialist frontrunner Zoran Mondami would endanger the safety and dignity of Jews in every city, citing his refusal to condemn globalize the Intifada, denial of Israel's legitimacy, and genocide claims, according to the letter published by the Jewish majority. In the open letter titled A Rabbinic Call to Action Defending the Jewish Future, the signers say that they cannot remain silent in the face of rising anti-Zionism and its political normalization throughout our nation, adding that when public figures like Mamdani refuse to condemn violent slogans, deny Israel's legitimacy, and accuse the Jewish state of genocide, they delegitimize the Jewish community and encourage and exacerbate hostility toward Judaism and Jews. Steve, again, politics is an interesting thing to me, because I think a lot of times we look at politics like a spectrum, like a line. You got your extreme left over here, you got your extreme right over here. I actually think, especially when it comes to anti-Semitism and the hatred of Israel, it's not a line. It's actually a circle. And at some point, those extreme views begin to touch one another. And that's why it's so interesting to me that you have such a conservative individual like Tucker Carlson, who has some probably similar affinities toward Israel that Mondani have. Like the way he talked about Israel, they almost begin to kind of, it's not this line where they're on two separate ends of the spectrum. No, they're actually kind of coming back around and agreeing. I'm sure they could sit around and agree with one another on certain things when it comes to Israel. So all that to say, it's an interesting thing that we're seeing take place.
Well, following that up, Chris, the New York Post has an article, teacher union boss Randy Weingarten accused of ignoring, now, by the way, she's Jewish, and she's accused of ignoring anti-Semitism in a bombshell letter. And the top deputy to the American Federation of Teachers has been accused of fostering a culture of anti-Semitism that alienates Jewish members by a key Republican senator, Bill Cassidy, Republican of Louisiana. And it goes on to talk that the leaders of the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, and other groups slammed the virtual seminar for promoting a one-sided and inflammatory narrative on Israel-Palestinian issues. And so, Chris, we're not only talking about an assault on the possible mayor of New York, should he be elected, but a teachers' union seems to be courting anti-Semitism as well.
Well, and we might have mentioned this in the past, but one of our Tikva volunteers, I think we mentioned it last week or the week before, but she works for a public school, and she saw the stuff that was inside the NJEA, the New Jersey's teachers union. Their magazine had some questionable things about Israel and the Jewish people in it, and she went and did the research and found out that the new editor of the magazine has a really, really dark history when it comes to Israel and the Jewish people. It's all like social media posts that she put up there. So our Tikva volunteer got to work highlighting this one-sided view that the editor has, and called it out to some of the Jewish groups in New Jersey. And it made its way, as you know, maybe you're listening, you don't know this, but in New Jersey, we have a big gubernatorial race going on right now. It made its way all the way up to the two candidates, the Republican Jack Ciattarelli and the the Democratic candidate, Mikey Sherrill, both condemning this particular editor of the New Jersey Teachers Union's magazine, and all of that because of our Tikva volunteer who went to work making sure that this was highlighted. So we're not saying that there can't be two different views, but not when the editor has a very one-sided anti-Israel, almost anti-Semitic slant. That's a very dangerous place for an editor to be making decisions.
Well, you would think that the things that are happening here would drive some Jewish people back to Israel to make Aliyah. And in fact, that happens. It's happening in Europe amongst European Jews as well as American Jews. But Chris, in light of the things going on in Israel, there's an article that 83,000 Israelis left Israel. They emigrated out of Israel because of the difficulty. And in fact, the article that I read, Chris, talked about one family that went to America, but things were worse in America, so they went back. They left thinking they were going to stay, but it was worse in America, so they went back to Israel.
They left.
There are Jewish people who don't know where they should be, where they can be safe. Benjamin Netanyahu would say you're safer, you're safest in Israel. That's probably true. But the things going on in Israel, we read about them all the time. And so it becomes difficult. The Jewish people are increasingly being ostracized and set apart. And we knew about this biblically. We have biblical understanding, but the biblical understanding is the knowledge, Chris, that we have, and I think true. But having to live it or watch people live it becomes very difficult. You were telling me that there's a person on staff with us who was speaking to his church, and the woman was crying because the more he spoke about the Jewish people and their blindness to the gospel and the situation in Israel, that she just couldn't stop weeping. That's the kind of thing. I'm not happy she cried, but in a sense I am, because her heart is breaking as we think about the chosen people and the difficulties they face.
That's right. And then she came up to him and said, "What do? I just feel emotional about the Jewish people." He said, "Take bridges." So there you go. Take bridges.
There you go.
Take bridges. Hey, Steve, before we get to the Yiddish word of the day, I have a friend down in Richmond, Virginia area, and she serves with an amazing organization called First Fruits of Zion. And they just put out a video that I am going to put in our show notes called "Should Christians Support Israel?" And
great question.
Yeah. And so I watched it. It's a brief video. I'll put. It's only about 5 or 6 minutes long, and I'll put it in the show notes so that our listeners can watch it. But I want to. What the two gentlemen that were in that video talking, they brought out something that I thought was so fascinating that I never thought of before, that I wanted our listeners to hear, and I sent it to you, and even it fascinated you because the idea of Israel coming back together, being restored, and this idea of these conversations about Christian Zionism, Christian belief that the Jewish people have a right to exist in their ancient homeland. All of this is so important, and there's this modern prayer, Steve, for the state of Israel. And the word that they use in it is this anticipation of something greater. But what we see now in Israel is by no mistake. Israel as a sovereign country today is by no mistake. It's providentially placed there by God. And Steve, maybe you want to just read the first few lines, but that first sentence is the one that really just makes me excited, and maybe you can read it.
Okay. This actually is the modern state of Israel's prayer for the modern state of Israel. Our Father in heaven, Rock and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, the first manifestation of the approach of our redemption. There it is, Chris.
That's mind-blowing to me.
Shield it with your loving kindness, envelop it in your peace, and bestow your light and truth upon its leaders, ministers, and advisors, and grace them with your good counsel. We've been talking about that. They're praying, it mimics what the psalmist was talking about.
Exactly.
Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Grant them deliverance and adorn them in a mantle of victory. Ordain peace in the land and grant its inhabitants eternal happiness.
Steve, the one that stands out is Our Father in Heaven, Rock and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, the first manifestation of the approach of our redemption, that the first blossoming of the final redemption.
That was in the video. The first blossoming of our redemption is the nation of Israel.
This is, again, this is coming from a prayer that is read, but notice it's the same thing that I believe the Apostle Paul is saying. The Apostle Paul, we've highlighted this a bunch of times, but the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 11 is highlighting the fact that what you're seeing now isn't the completion of what's yet to come for Israel and the Jewish people, because that's when he says in Romans chapter 11 in verse 13, now I'm speaking to you, verse 12, now if their trespass means the riches for the world, and if their failure means riches for the Gentiles, amen and amen, thank you, how much more will their full inclusion be, that full redemption that's coming? If their rejection of Jesus means that if their rejection of Jesus means that as a Gentile, I'm blessed, I'm rich in the Lord, what will their full inclusion as Israel when they believe mean? Here, even they're saying, as Jewish people, when they pray the prayer of Israel, they're going, hey, look, what you're seeing now is not the full picture of what God's trying to do. Now, we believe Jesus is going to provide the full picture, and that's why we exist as the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry. But ultimately, there's this, they believe that there's this approach of our redemption, this blossoming of the final redemption, that this is just a small part of a greater thing that's happening. And that's, I think the Apostle Paul is saying the same thing in Romans 11.
Well, Chris, I hope you'll include in the show notes the copy of this prayer for the modern state of Israel.
I will, and I definitely want to say thank you to our friend at First Fruits of Zion, and I'll encourage you to go visit their website as well. And
put that in the show notes.
We'll put all that in the show notes. But Steve, we have our Yiddish word of the day, Yiddish word of the day.
Chris, we did have our 10-year-old who is the advocate for Israel, and I thought Ben Carasso was so good, and so in Yiddish, I went to find how do you say, we used the word schmooze or schmoozer before. That's somebody who's good at, cozying up to somebody, kind of being talkative. But that's not what Ben is.
No, he's not a schmoozer.
He's good inverter.
Good inverter.
Yep, good with words. 10 years old, he was good inverter.
That's Ben Carasso, the Guten Verter.
And the psalmist wasn't bad either.
No, he wasn't. That's fantastic. This is a simpler, more direct way to say that someone expresses themselves very well. Guten Verter. Good jobs. Hey, you're finding some really deep Yiddish words these days.
Hey, I gotta look them up because I never heard that. No, my parents never told me that. I can tell you that. Yiddish or in English.
That's right. They said Lazengain.
That's right. Get out of here already.
What's the other one? Lazen the Kinder? Or what?
Lazen the Kinder. Let the for the kids.
That's
Let them alone.
That's right. Well, Guten Verter. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for being a part of the Friends of Israel's Jew and Gentile podcast. Hey, you know what? I'll tell you what Steve and I aren't. We are not Guten Verter.
You could sure say that again.
But if you made it this far, we want to say thank you very much.
Congratulations.
That's right, Mazel Tov. You've made it all the way to the end of the podcast.
You're one of the few.
Hey, don't forget to donate to our FOI Equip ministry, equipping Christians to love the Jewish people. Also, don't forget to sign up to get free stickers. If you made it this far, we want to give you free stickers.
About free stickers. 424-1948.
Text us there. We'll send you 50 free stickers that support Israel and the Jewish people. Again, that's 424-1948. Hey, thanks so much for being a part of the Friends of Israel's Jew and Gentile podcast. The producer, Steve Herzig, and myself want to say thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.